everybody reaches for their microphone.
All right, we're good?
We're good.
Good morning. I'd like to open up the special meeting, Village Council special meeting, June 26, 2023. I show the time at 10:05, and I show we have everyone here except for Ms. Vandenberg, Mayor Pro Tem. She will not be attending the meeting today. That said, we're going to go right into the meeting. I know we have a hard stop at noon, so hopefully we'll be done before that. First up is the agenda. We need to, any changes we need to make on any of that? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, items of discussion. Discuss and consider, I'm sorry, it's not popping up here. Discuss and consider waiving the two-quote requirement and entering agreement for construction of the Tullamore Phase 4 trail with Blue Ridge Trail Works not to exceed $22,400 with a contingency of $2,000 and allow manager to execute the contract. Who's got that?
I'll take it real quick, Tyler. Tyler's handling this, but
He's shadowing is
he's
what
kind
he's
of been in
doing
the
today.
process
You
of
got it.
merging.
We'd already done this.
So, real quick, there's a couple different phases to Tullamore. There's phase 1, 2, which has been completed. There's phase 3, and there's phase 4. We are currently in the process of doing phase 3. You guys have approved phase 3. You have not approved phase 4. We are in the process right now of reallocating the easement. There's some issues with the current easement, the same thing that we saw with Tullamore Phase 2, where we had some flooding issues. So we're trying to realign that easement and trying to get cooperation from the Audrey property, Parks at Audrey, or Town of Audrey. If that does not work out, then we are going to have to realign it between Tullamore and Amber Meadows, so they meet up. So staff is still actively working on those negotiations, trying to get that alignment redone. But in the process, we're just trying to go ahead and get this contract approved so we can keep the ball rolling with Blue Ridge Trail Works. We are still doing phase 3, and we hope to have the realignment done by the time phase 3 is completed, so he can stay mobilized and keep going.
So the balance is 29, so there's room in there for anything we have. That's what we have in that.
Yes, so the way the ordinance were written several years ago, we had an ordinance for Greenway and Loop, and then we had another one for maintenance. There's not really a need that we see to keep them separated because they're all one and of the same system. So staff actually has either prepared or will prepare a closeout for one of those Greenway projects, and then we're lumping it all in the same one. So we'll pull it from one or the other. I can't specifically remember which one we're pulling it from, but it's all kind of the same pot for Greenway, so we're just going to lump it together and pull it.
Okay. Any questions from council? So you just need approval on this, a
Yes.
motion? And the motion is in here, right? Does anyone want to take the draft motion and run with it?
I'd like to make a motion to waive the two-quote requirement and enter agreement for construction of the Tullamore Phase 4 trail, the Blue Ridge Trail Works, in the amount not to exceed $22,400 with a contingency of $2,000 and allow manager to execute the contract.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. All right, moving on. Next up, we have discuss, I'm sorry? Oh, I thought you were. All right, next up, we have discuss and consider awarding contract to Union Environmental Site Services LLC for miscellaneous concrete repair and services and authorize manager to execute agreement.
I'll just say real quick on that, on number 2, number 3, and number 4, this, what I'm getting ready to say kind of summarizes everything for those 3 items. We've gone out to bid at least twice, maybe even 3 times on asphalt and repair, concrete and repair, and then tree removal and debris. We do still have the fog seal that's floating out there. We have not RFP'd for that. We're working on a couple hiccups that we've got with the engineer, but we're treating these contracts separately to get better cost savings for specified work for concrete, specified work for asphalt. When we went out to bid the first time, we received one bid on one of them. I can't remember which one. Went out to bid for the second time. I think this is actually the second time. We received one bid on each of them, and that's what you see here today in front of you. The attorney has reviewed the RFPs. He's prepared the agreements that are in your agenda packet, and it basically is a cost per unit RFP, so that we don't have to continuously go out to bid for that cost per unit, but we will only pay what we use. So that suffices for the concrete and the asphalt. The tree bid removal, which you'll see in number 4, we're asking for rejection on that, and I'll explain more on that in just a second.
So Christina, I just drove by there this morning, and they have a backhoe there, and their construction going on, and they're digging up trees right now in the,
At Tom Short?
yes.
Okay.
So that has already, that's a DOT thing? Or
That is DOT, yes.
Okay, so
Completely
that's-
separate issue.
Okay.
But in the event that we decide to do some of that sidewalk repair, or the HOA does it, however we figure that out, we could use one of these services to perform that work, so we don't have to RFP for that
Right,
work again.
Right. So is it just, you can't, it's just, like, I mean, Andy knows this as well as I do, and anyone who picks up the phone to get a contractor, you can't get them, because they can't find workers, and is that the issue, do you think we're having, or is it just nobody wants to do work for the government?
We don't really have well, I can't say we don't have an
I'm surprised there's only
issue.
one bid, that's my.
Oh,
that's my-
yeah, I don't know, yeah, I don't know.
I think everybody's just too busy. That's the
Yeah.
climate right now with the growth here. It's just everybody's too busy. There's not enough services out there to cover all the work, so.
We also put this is a pretty important detail too for y'all to know, we also put some provisions in there, like they had to have a certain number of hours to respond to certain calls. If we had an emergency call where we had a storm grate fall down and there's, a liability hazard, we gave them a 24-hour response time, so they may not feel comfortable with some of that. They may feel comfortable knowing that they could respond in 2 weeks, but not necessarily 24 hours. And they would be penalized if they didn't respond within that 24 hours.
How long is this contract going to be in
It's-
place for?
It's 2 years, it has the potential to be up to 3 years. It's renewable every year. It's 1 year, and then it's renewable for 1 year stints at a time.
So, and I know the government requires, or local government requires all these things they need to hit on, check off the box on each one of them. Do you think that's the problem, is people just don't want to go through that process in the bid, whereas if I were to call that same person for the same work, he's just going to give me a number and there's no necessary contract? That's the issue. Because what I'm thinking is, how are we getting our message out when we're doing RFPs? Where are we sending it right now, communication-wise?
So so our engineer handled that. They sent it to a lot of the vendors that they use. We sent it internally to vendors that we knew were out there, that we had. Hunter sent it to a couple of people that he's dealt with in the past. It was posted on our website both times. It was also put into the minority business posting with the state of North Carolina. So it went out to tons of people that would have had the
As long as we're
opportunity.
checking off the boxes as many as we can, because I even thought, like, you could advertise at Site One or something, that people do that work, put it up on the board, and it's just, as long as we're making the effort, if people aren't gonna bid, then we have to
A
kind
lot
of
of,
go down
a
this
lot of
road.
places that are looking for work will go to that minority business, because even if you're not a minority business, there's tons of jobs posted there. So a lot of them will go there and look for jobs to bid on, just to bid.
Okay,
There's a lot of contractors out there that are not looking, that are out there, they're just not looking for this type of scope, like having a reaction time, and plus, probably don't have workman's comp because they're smaller, they don't require it to run their business, so there's a lot of things, there's a lot of contractors out there that just don't fit this
well,
box either, so.
They're already getting pitched from their current customers. I need this done yesterday.
Yeah.
And they can't, and that's not even an option. What we're requiring of them is not even an option.
It's gotta be big companies that
Yeah.
can respond, and there's only so many big companies in these things that are gonna respond.
well,
Our RFP packets are attached inside your agenda packet, and they're about this thick. So, I mean, a lot of people just don't want to look for that. I mean,
Right.
most people, like, you as an individual would just say, hey, I need this done. Can you give me a quote? They come out and they give you a quote. There's not a stack of that much provisions and insurance and all this stuff that you have to follow through. So you're
So-
probably right. It's bigger companies that have the resources to go through a lot of that stuff and to actually comply.
But it's a requirement of us.
Yes.
To put that out.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's, yeah, we're not the only municipalities going through that.
No.
The other
Yeah.
municipalities.
I just want to make it public for Joe Public listening in on these meetings and stuff and say, we're making an effort to do it. It's just that we're not getting the response, and then we're turning it over to you for these next 3 items to, be able to address it, so.
So can I make
yeah.
a recommendation?
Sure.
And my recommendation would be, and I don't know how you do this, I don't even know how you do it legally, but you got WUMA. And if it's for Marvin, because we all have the same issues, we're all having the same problems. If we could do some type of an agreement through WUMA and so then it would become more feasible for those folks to look at those requirements, because they're not doing it just for Marvin. There are tree services for all of WUMA. There's plumbing services for all of WUMA.
That's a
Then
great
it
idea.
becomes appetite. They have an appetite to take a look at it.
Well, they can commit more resources because there would be more constant work. So like,
It's under an umbrella of the.
Right. Now, again, contractually, I don't know how we do that, but that's the benefit of having WUMA in place. And so I would recommend doing that. To me, that's a solution that gets us past some of this.
So the way we do that is in the WUMA agreement, we'll put that on the agenda there and bring that up as a discussion item, that here's a fix, because that's exactly what that meeting is for. Here's the issues we're having in our town. How are you guys dealing with it? And let's do something maybe together, or.
Well, again, let's be proactive with it,
Right.
because today, they may not have tree issues. But 2 months, 6 months from now, they're gonna have tree issues. They're gonna have to go through the same process, and they're gonna bump up to the same issues that we have.
Yep.
Once we put it together and we ship it out and put it out to everyone, they're like, oh, that's significant business.
Well, it's gonna be, I think, I would dare say that probably Waxaw, Stallings, and Indian Trail wouldn't be interested in that because they have their own public works that can handle those things. They're big enough public works. They do that stuff in-house, but Weddington,
Wesley
Mineral
Chapel,
Springs.
Mineral Springs.
However, we could still dovetail with them. We may be able to
Right.
use their suppliers
Maybe.
and bring them in. That's just, and that could make it easier.
yeah. I mean,
Just-
it certainly is a great idea to work with
Yep.
the neighboring
So-
municipalities.
One prime example of that, it's a great idea. We actually tried to do that with Weddington with the solid waste collection, if you recall. They were not ready to jump on board when we were, so therefore we went before them and went about the process. But, I mean, the opportunity has presented itself before, the kind of concept is in motion, they've been aware of it. So I think they just need to recognize, as in all the municipalities, need to sit back, like you said, and recognize what impending issues do they have coming up, and where is it the opportunity that we can kind of piggyback with one another. Maybe not all of them, but maybe a couple of them here or there on certain services that would make sense.
We could also add and subtract municipalities as we go. I mean, we can renegotiate contracts depending on if somebody's not ready this year, but maybe next year they can come in
So-
next year.
The contracts that you have before you are one-year contracts with an optional renewal for 1 year, 2 times. So y'all can go ahead and toy around the concept, the idea, and if we want to go back in year 2 and renegotiate the terms based on adding another municipality and more units of service, that's definitely an option.
Okay. Well, I will make a note to send that out for the next agenda item, just for discussion and stuff. But for now, we want to approve this, I believe, so we can get moving on with that, if that's okay with council. Any other questions, comments? So, someone want to tackle the draft motion on first page there to award contract?
I make a motion to award contract to Union Environmental Site Services LLC for miscellaneous concrete repair services and authorize manager to execute agreement.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. On to the next one. It's going to be very similar, I assume.
I make a motion to award contract to Union Environmental Services LLC for let's see, is that the,
No, that's a different one.
I just realized that motion is mixed up. Let me fix that really fast.
Draft motion to reject, isn't that the next one?
Hold on 1 second.
to reject all bids for tree.
That's the next item.
Sorry, the draft motion in your system for number 3 was off. I just fixed it for you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I need to go do number 3 again, correct? Okay. I make a motion to award contract to Union Environmental Site Services.
It needs to be refreshed. Just pull it down.
Refreshed, okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, how the hell you
You should
refresh
have
it?
just updated.
All right, if someone else can refresh faster than I can, please, I make a motion that y'all make
Needs
a
to
motion.
teach me how to refresh.
Austin, you can read the motion.
I can read it for you.
Okay.
It's to award the contract to Red Clay Industries for miscellaneous asphalt repair and services and authorize manager to execute the agreement.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so it wasn't an issue having that first motion then?
No, because you didn't finish, the motion wasn't no, the person didn't finish their sentence.
Okay. No, I was talking about the original one we did, so, okay, so
Oh,
moving
no,
on.
you're good, it's good.
Moving on to number 4, this is discuss and consider rejection of all bids for tree debris removal services.
So I'll just say real quick on that, again, we received one bid on this. After review with our engineer, there was a lot of special provisions that were put into this bid, meaning they had their per unit pricing, but they added a lot of special provisions to if the tree was near a structure, if the tree had 8-foot limbs, if the tree had this, if the tree had that, then it was gonna be an additional $4 per unit, or there was a lot of provisions on there that we thought were not relevant to the bid. And it made prices a lot higher than what we were able to really justify and figure out what was reasonable. So our recommendation is to reject this bid. We actually don't physically need this service immediately. This is really us thinking in the future when trees fall down on the road, when we have bigger trees that need to be trimmed, so, you know, some of those items that we have had the foresight to think are gonna be problematic in the next year or two. So we definitely need to work on it. It's just not an immediate issue that we need to get done like today. So we wanna have some time to rethink if we want to, you know, properly train staff to do these types of things, if we want to get the equipment and the safety training that they need to do this, or if we want to actually have a contracted service to do it.
And that's where I think, again, WUMA would be a great asset to go in and say, hey, look, we come out with a contract that involves 3 municipalities or 4. You want to be a part of it, join with us, but we're all signing up under the same legal umbrella, if you will. So anytime there is a tree issue in Weddington, they call this company, and they bid on that type of thing where they're access. I think that would be great, but I'm good with this as well. Any questions on this particular reject all bids, tree removal service?
I make
All
a
right.
motion
Go ahead.
to reject all bids for tree debris removal services.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we have consider call for public hearing for Village of Marvin zoning designation, rezoning for annex petition of property located at 1225 Crane Road, parcel number 061800005M, as in Mary. Who's got this?
So this is just a call for public hearing. The public hearing for the annexation has already been called for, I believe. Per the state statute, if we accept the annexation petition, we have to zone it one of our zoning districts. So this is just a rezoning of that. In short, the property is 3 acres, and staff and planning board made the recommendation to just zone it R Marvin Residential District. Creates no nonconformities. It's not part of an existing subdivision, so it does not need to be in the RUC. So if there's any questions on the specific application, we haven't answered now, but it's just part of the process to rezone the property if we accept the annexation.
First piece of property on Crane Road.
It will be.
All right. Without any other questions or concerns for this, because this is just a call for the public hearing, correct?
Correct.
All right. Someone want to take that?
I make a motion to call for public hearing on July 11th, 2023, at 6 PM at Village Hall for consideration of zoning annex property located at 1225 Crane Road, parcel number 061800005M, R Marvin Residential Zoning District.
Further discussion? All's in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Next up, we have, consider a call for public hearing on July 11th, 2023 at 6 PM at Village Hall for consideration of zoning text amendments to the Marvin Heritage District Form-Based Code. Hunter, I'm going to guess this is you.
Yep, so this is, staff's been working on revisions of the form-based code over the last couple of months. These are just kind of clarifications. One of the biggest changes is really to the buffer matrix. Tried to clarify that the best I can. And then the other big change is, since it's set up as a conditional zoning district, we had special uses and permitted uses. Basically, if we are approving, or if the council is approving a site plan for a specific use, i.e. like a bar, restaurant, serving alcohol, something like that. In short, it's basically like a double jeopardy if you approve them for the rezoning for that use, and then they have to come back and get a special use permit. So it's basically stating, it's kind of clarifying the permitted uses and special uses. It's not changing anything. It's just stating that if the that proposed use is approved of part of the rezoning, then they do not need to come back and get a special use permit after the fact. We can get into more detail during the public hearing, but some of these recommendations and stuff were pointed out by Chaplin, kind of reviewing the current process and the way the ordinance reads. But all those changes are in your ordinance, or in your packets. I tried to outline them. There's about 9 changes. Chaplin still, I'm sending that to him today to review. But if council has any questions at this time or wants to review and set a meeting with me, I'd be happy to go over all these changes with you. But it's really just clarifying and making it more consistent across the board with building type, square footage, all that stuff.
And Chaplin's reviewed, he's got all of this, and he's agreed to all of it.
He's reviewing it. I've been discussing with him on how to approach this, but like, I'm just making sure he's in a review for legal purposes. Like I said, the biggest change is the buffer matrix stuff. It's not really changing the requirements. It does reduce buffer in area, but since this is conditional zoning, we can always go more restrictive. We can't go less restrictive than what we have in the ordinance, meaning I tried to find the happy medium of where we think the bare minimum should be in most cases. And then if we get a specific plan and we think that the buffer should be greater, then that is something that we can ask the applicant to increase the buffer, and that be a condition of their approval.
Because I can see that they could vary based on which side of the road you're on.
Correct.
And what's going to require if we have that ability, so.
Correct. It kind of came down to the way it used to read was that, I mean, for example, the commercial only had to have a 100-foot tree buffer. The commercial only properties are Ravi's property, the Crane Store property, and now the Zepsa property. And if you think about how some of those properties are shaped, and then they also have to have a 50-foot view shed buffer, it really then kind of limits where you can build, impact anything. And that's fine. It's just that 100-foot tree buffer, for example, you couldn't put parking in. So it's basically kind of low, it's creating a 50-foot not undisturbed buffer. The buildings still have to be 100 feet plus back from the property line, but it's allowing for like parking and stuff to kind of go in the buffer, and you have kind of a denser vegetative buffer to help with, screening, noise, lights, all that stuff.
And this is just the call for the public
Yeah.
hearing. So you'll actually be discussing this in detail in a couple weeks.
I just wanted to make sure you guys I think some of you guys have been kind of in the loop with some of these changes, but I just kind of want to go over that, high concept.
Everything you have in there with the red strikes, that's what's going out, and the rest of that is the final.
Correct.
To be discussed.
I'll have what's in the packets is kind of a outline. It's the same, the changes are there, but I'll have like a clean copy of the ordinance for you guys in the July meeting. But once again, just wanted to make sure that you guys are aware of what these changes are, and if you want to discuss them further, I'm happy to meet with you and go through them.
Okay.
As we make these text amendments, these are being shared and communicated to our person that is doing the rewrite so that they're updated. So we're on the same page.
Yeah, so this is just kind of, since we do have some, an application and process as well as ones that could be going through the process, these are kind of changes to go ahead and get implemented in the form-based code. As we're doing the UDO rewrite, basically the form-based code will be touched slightly because I'm going to have them review that. It's going to be implemented as part of the UDO, as probably as an appendix. But basically the other thing is that the way the form-based code reads is that any other ordinances within our zoning ordinance, the new Marvin Development Ordinance, they still have to comply with that. On top of it, there's a contradictory, like the more restrictive is supposed to apply. So that's where, we're kind of going through this and making sure it's all kind of consistent, but basically making sure that the standards are still in place. The biggest thing I want to make sure that council and everybody knows is that, once again, these district standards do not apply unless the property has been approved for rezoning. So they have to go through that conditional rezoning process even to meet these standards.
I just want to make sure that there's a process in place between now when we adopt the new, the new rewrite, that there's a process in place that takes care of all these text amendments. So we're up. So day one, when we have the rewrite, we're in lockstep with.
Yep.
He's in lockstep with us, we're in lockstep with him.
And Rick was here on Thursday when I kind of went through the overview of these changes before planning board made their recommendation. He's in the loop of it. I do need the form-based code itself is the one thing him and I still have to kind of figure out how to integrate into the overall rewrite and how we want to do it. Because the reason we did a form-based code is to focus on the design, kind of have those pictures and have it's supposed to be a separate document than the ordinance, but it's still part of our zoning ordinance. So I've got to figure out if we're going to touch it fully or how we're going to kind of get it all implemented in, but it will be all integrated within the Marvin Development Ordinance rewrite.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions from council? Someone want to?
I'll give Councilman Lyon a chance to rest. I'll make a motion to call for public hearing on July 11, 2023 at 6 p.m. at Village Hall for the consideration of zoning text amendments to the Marvin Heritage District Form-Based Code.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
I gave you a cheat sheet over here. So. All right, next up, we have, for information only, June Treasurer's Report. I guess. Jill?
Yeah, so this report just basically details shuffling around of some funds within a particular department. So it doesn't require council approval, but it does require that I notify you. So just some accounts where we spent less, some where we needed to spend a little bit more, and we're, before the fiscal year ends, we're just kind of shuffling that money around to make good use of it and finish up the year.
And how's our money doing interest-wise? Are we in that fund yet?
So the goal is to be in the fund by next week.
Okay.
Chaplain just sent the contract back with a couple of requests for us to scratch a few things out. And we're expecting hopefully our first interest payment at the end of July.
Those interest rates, we should share it with the citizens. They can all jump on and be part of that. So, yeah, exactly. All right, any questions? Thank you, Jill. Next up, we have consider and adopt budget ordinance for motor vehicle tag.
I'll just say real quick, this is for the tag fee that everyone's paying, the $25 fee. We are basically taking the money that we have collected, putting into that Greenways Capital project that we're just talking about earlier, where we're going to pool and try to fund some of these Greenway projects. The staff, Jill and I are still working on kind of the mechanics behind what can actually be spent dollar for dollar on that tag fee versus POW bill dollars. So there's still some moving around, some thoughts that we have to consider to legally be able to spend that money on what the legal purpose is. So we may have to come back and do some more shuffling. We're not 100% sure that we can use the 100% of the greenway, or the vehicle tag fees for greenway purposes instead of road purposes. So we may have to come back and shuffle some of the PAL bill dollars to replace the greenway tags and put that greenway tag back into what's used for PAL bill purposes.
And refresh my memory, how are we collecting that? Through the county or through the state? Because the state is the one that has the records of, well, actually, county does, because you have to get it registered.
We collect it from the county. I'm not sure where the consumer pays it. I would assume it's through the county or with DMV when you.
Based on what the
Yeah.
current records are, okay.
When you register your vehicle is when you should pay that fee. I will note, the last I checked on the fees that were collected, they're substantially lower than what we had estimated. Now, we knew that was going to be the case with kind of the multi-year implementation. It's still a little bit lower than what I had initially projected if you're combining 2 years. So we're still going to have to keep revisiting those numbers and playing with them as we see more consistent numbers coming in.
And refresh my memory again, where were we hoping to spend those funds? With only greenways, or?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
that was the intent and the purpose. And I'm not saying we can't do that. What will potentially happen if we determine we can't spend 100% of that on greenways, what would happen is, let's say we pull out 5 different projects. All but 4 of them are geared for greenway purposes. We would basically take that dollar amount that it would have otherwise been, put that into what would street resurfacing would cost or fog seal would cost, and then take that same dollar amount out of reserve for PAL bill purposes and put it into the greenways.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I can
Yep.
give you a better illustration. if
No,
you need.
I just, I was trying to remember why we were, where that specifically was going to be targeted and stuff, so. And I see we have Kimmy that joined us just now. I'll have eggs, pancake.
I am in Paris right now. You guys want a crepe?
Yeah, crepe is good. Yeah, that'll work for me.
Okay. Sweet or savory?
Okay. Well, we're moving along.
Okay.
This meeting's actually going a lot faster than expected. It was interesting. It's ironic that you
We're
aren't
almost-
here.
Yeah, go back to eating.
Yeah, because it's
Thank-
me that's
thank-
laying down the meeting. I don't think so.
Thank you for joining us.
You did make a motion to allow her to participate.
Oh, yeah, I'll need a motion to allow Kim to participate remotely.
So moved?
All those in favor?
Aye.
They still like you, Kim, you're in.
Can I oppose?
You can. All right, so moving on. So any other questions for Christina regarding the tag?
No, and I'll just note real quick, if you look at the budget ordinance, we have 93,000 that's been received to date. I think we had projected 143-ish. Don't quote me on that, but I want to say it was around 143. So what we have to do after the second year is really look at those numbers to see if they actually equate to what we projected. So we'll have better numbers next year, is basically what I'm saying.
So you're concerned in justifying it with the state that we can use this for that, right? Because I would think that you could say, hey, Greenways gets people off the roads, it's less maintenance for us to do and encourages people to ride bikes versus, that would be my argument.
Yeah, it's not necessarily the state, it's just the interpretation of the statute and making sure that we're complying with the intent of the statute so that, citizens understand that we are in compliance. I think it's probably fine. We just want to make sure we kind of comb through it a little more detailed to make sure we feel good and confident about it, so. At the end of the day, we will still figure a way to allocate those dollars for Greenway purposes. It just may require a little bit of shuffling around. For example, if we're using $10,000 to fund a bridge, for example, that connects a little area within a subdivision, and that's the only place that it goes, within a subdivision, I would not want to sell that to public transportation purposes. So we would basically take that $10,000 from a POW bill purpose and put it back into the greenways. I don't have all the answers today for those questions. We haven't even touched looking at the statutes in probably a year and a half. So we will have to come back to spend this money anyways. Whenever we go to have a contract for greenways, we will obviously come to you all to approve those contracts. What happens with our greenways and trails is we put those in the CIP. We put them in the CIP, and y'all approve the CIP, and then from there, we have the contracts that come up within individual meetings, like you saw this morning with the Tullamore Phase 4 or Phase 3, whatever it was. We'll get you all to approve those contracts when they come up. So the next time we have an agreement come up, we will have already answered the question on what I'm posing to you right now.
So, okay, any other questions? Now, this draft motion that we have is not specific to anything. It just says to adopt the budget ordinance for as presented. Do we want to include?
As long as it's associated with this, we have record that this is what's referring to, this is legal.
So you don't have to mention motor vehicle tag? All right, so whoever decides to take the draft motion, I prefer if you reference the motor vehicle tag budget. How do you refresh?
Pull down.
Just pull down.
Oh, this?
Yeah. There you go. There you go. See it?
Ah, there we go. Look at that. Okay, someone want to take that?
I'm not on it right now, so can't.
It didn't refresh.
It didn't refresh. Okay, we'll use yours. You want to, you can do the,
Just read it and
Read.
we'll,
To adopt the budget ordinance for the motor vehicle tag fees as presented.
okay.
So moved.
Further discussion? All is in favor?
aye.
Motion passes.
Aye.
Thanks, Kim.
Yeah, for some reason.
It's not
It doesn't refresh
refreshing
on
on
our.
our screens.
Pull down.
I
It
did.
did. And then it said loading contents, but didn't
but it didn't-
change anything, so.
So,
Anyway, it's a little glitch. Next up, we have consider adoption of general fund budget ordinance for miscellaneous year-ending adjustments.
This kind of monitors the same thing that Jill was referring to other with the treasury reports, just a couple of year-end adjustments, primarily from Marvin Day expenditures and revenues received. She just shuffled around some bigger ticket items that were not eligible to be put into that treasury report. You see a little bit of engineering, just some very miscellaneous things, but mostly it all being around Marvin Day expenditures.
Document has been modified, so, okay. Any questions from council?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance as presented.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Kim? Did we hear her?
She's,
I said aye.
Oh, I didn't hear
You
you,
hear
I'm
me?
sorry.
That's okay.
I thought you were
I'm
eating
trying not to
I
yell
thought you were
too
eating a pancake or something, so.
It's a crepe, not a pancake. Get it right.
Crepe, French crepe. All right, moving on. Next up, we have consider and adopt capital project ordinance for Greenways closeout.
This is what I was referring to at the beginning of the meeting. For whatever reason, years ago, we had two capital projects established for loop extensions and then trails construction and maintenance. It's really confusing for staff to figure out which trail project comes out of which account, and there's really no purpose of keeping them separated internally. So we're just asking council to merge them into one kind of blanket greenways, trails, maintenance account so that we can better track things internally.
Do you really think that helps if you combine them versus what we want to do as far as new trails and then what needs to be done maintenance? Those shouldn't be separate?
We don't-
Just a
we
question,
don't-
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't, when we discuss in our capital improvement plan, we don't keep them separate. I mean, it's just, they're greenways. What are we gonna get accomplished next year? What are we gonna get accomplished in year 3? We don't necessarily say, what are we gonna do in the loop this year? What are we gonna do in Tullamore this year? What are we gonna do in Firethorn this year? We talk in general terms, greenways and trails, what are we gonna get accomplished?
Okay.
There's been a lot of confusion internally with the way they were set up, and these were done years ago. I want to say 10, 15 years ago. There's a lot of discussion about one was used for concrete, one was used for asphalt, which is completely not true, but some of that institutional kind kind of rumors has trickled down, and it just causes a lot of confusion for us to keep them separated. And sometimes things were getting coded to one account when they should have been coded to another. And it's just easier internally for us to have one capital project that applies to trails.
Okay.
Whatever works best for staff, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so I'll need a motion on this one.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the capital project closeout ordinance as presented.
And we don't have to give the number that's on the,
No, the numbers are only for filing purposes, and those can
Okay.
change internally.
all right. Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
I will note real fast, just so you're aware, we are about spent out of this account after the Tullamore Trail Phase 3 and 4 is completed, and then the internal preserve, it's pretty much, this $88,000 that you see here will be washed out, so I'm just letting you all know. Now, obviously, we'll have some more funds being put back in from the vehicle tag, as previously mentioned, but just so you're aware, we're pretty much at a zero in this account after the next 4 or 5 months takes place.
So if something were to happen, maintenance-wise, that tree falls down or whatever, where do we pull from?
We'll have to pull that from fund balance. Or hopefully the GO bond will have passed by then.
No
So
accident.
we're expecting
How
a
will-
tree not to fall between now and then. We got problems.
Somebody will hear it.
That's what you
Somebody
call
will hear it.
poor planning.
All right. Well, that was good. That's all we have, right?
It is, yes.
So with that, do you have a comment?
I just wanted to make a quick update on the roundabout, just so the public could hear.
Oh, yeah. That'd be great.
So we did get confirmation from DOT that the roundabout will start next week. You may not see an actual road closure for about a month and a half, because they're doing some utility line work, water line stuff. So there's a chance they may have to close it, but probably not. So you'll see some activity over there, but you won't see a closure for likely another month. So just so anyone listening at home is aware, we try to encourage you to find detour routes for yourself, because that traffic will get backed up. We have removed our officers there effective July 1st, so we'll no longer have that off-duty patrol there. And then once the road closure starts, they have about 2 months to actually complete the work. So kind of general timeline is what I would tell folks, anywhere between 2 to 3.5 months, but more likely 2 to 3 months. You'll see the activity / closure.
And I'm sure the push is to get this completed before school starts, obviously.
It's usually
I would think the push is, but I don't think it's realistic. Yeah, I think that
don't think it's
they're going to be
realistic.
moving into September.
I'm looking at that construction that's happening on Newtown, and that's, that's lucky if that even gets done by school. And that started a whole lot earlier.
So the detour routes are posted on our website. We're still working on a couple of potential changes to that detour, which we will let folks know if that takes place. But we just encourage you to find alternate routes that,
Do we have any signs, or do DOT provide any signs that, like, that sometimes when you have this going on, you have local traffic-only signs, meaning this is for the neighbors, not to be used as a cut-through, because you know Waze is directing you this way?
I'm not sure I can ask them that question, but we, at the very least, we could order signs ourselves that say that if there's specific requests.
Okay.
Do y'all have specific requests that
Well, I just know it was brought up from one of my neighbors asking that question, who happens to be a state legislator as well, because he's concerned with kids being on the road and stuff, that cars will be going through that neighborhood, so.
So I know Meadowlark probably would have that concern, Firethorn, and then
Meadowlark,
Marvin Creek.
Meadowlark would need it?
Well, if technically speaking, if I'm driving right now and the road's closed, I'm gonna drive down there, forgot that it's closed, I'm probably gonna turn around in Meadowlark.
In Meadowlark, yeah, okay. So where they turn around?
Yeah. So we could
Same
likely
with,
order some signs.
The, is it Preserve? That was right before Marvin Road?
They have a,
Yeah, Preserve as well.
That's another, would be a turnaround when they realize they've gone too far.
State
But
put a
I'm just-
huge
I'm-
sign
I'm-
here at the roundabout. You shouldn't even go past that sign, past the roundabout if the road's closed. I mean, they've got a huge
Yeah.
digital sign right here. No, right here.
Yeah.
They put it up.
They
it's-
shouldn't, but
it's
it'll
out there
happen.
right now.
At least a couple of times.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean,
right.
there's a huge sign right here in the roundabout. If they go past that and go down there when it's closed, then, you
Yeah.
know. they're
Turning
not paying
around in
attention.
our old stomping grounds.
Yeah.
Where the village
But
was.
I'll ask them about the local traffic-only signs, Meadowlark, Firethorn, Marvin Creek Preserve, any other ones?
Well, obviously Marvin Creek would be, people do that anyways, they've been doing it for years, unfortunately. But I could see them going the other way, instead of cutting through from Ray Road over to get to Joe Carr, from Joe Carr over to using that, and not going all the way down to Marvin School Road, if that makes any sense. So there's probably 2 or 3 streets there that lead into Marvin Creek that you may see people utilize
Okay.
versus going, the detour route, I would guess, would take you all the way down Joe Carr Road to Marvin School Road, make a right on Marvin School Road. I could see people through Waze or whatever they use, going through Marvin Creek that way and creating a lot more traffic when there are a lot more kids there. So probably be a great place to park one of our officers if they're no longer at the corner and check the speeds and stuff. So real quick then, refresh my memory on this. That funds that we spend on police officers that is volunteer goes away. So have we figured out where we're going to put those, or that goes into fund balance?
So we have not used general fund dollars for law enforcement for off-duty for 2 years now. That was all paid out of ARPA funding. So we've just basically used that to balance our budget with the natural increase of, additional staff, attrition of, or inflation of various things. So it's just went in to balance that budget with various projects and staff.
So there won't be necessarily a big windfall?
There
for-
will not, unfortunately.
Okay, just looking. Well, it'd be a windfall if you're no longer needing the officers over there, right? Yeah.
And we did only budget in the COVID funding for 2 years, so we're literally at our max of what we budgeted, so it's perfect timing for us.
Cool. All right, with that said, no other comments, I'll need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for attending. Kimmy, thank you for posting. Have a great day.
It's a small world, Kim.
Bye, thank you.
Oh, did you cut her off? Oh.
What was she? Looks like she was.
Do I need to sign anything now, Austin, or? Okay. And then I need a ride home.